I'd like to call to order this meeting of the First Five Sacramento Commission for Monday, February 1st, 2016. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll and establish a quorum?
Dave Gordon.
Here.
Beth Hassett.
Here.
Olivia Kassiri.
Here.
Paul Lake.
Here.
Scott Moak.
Here.
Terrence Jones.
Here.
Phil Cerna.
Here.
Donna Sneringer.
Here.
Steve Wirtz.
Here.
Kathy Kosick.
Here.
Christina Elliott.
Here.
Lee Turner Johnson.
Here.
Roberta McGlashan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you.
This meeting of the First Five Sacramento Commission is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T UVerse cable systems. This meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, February 5th at noon on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the Commission may sign up electronically at the kiosk located at the back of the room. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. If you have any electronic devices, please put them on silent or turn off now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lake, will you do us the honor of leading us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, again, I'd like to welcome everyone to our commission meeting this afternoon. And again, just a reminder, you're certainly welcome to address the First Five Commission on any item that's on our agenda, or at the end of our agenda, we have a space for and some time allocated for members of the public to address the commission on items not on the agenda. We'd only ask that you please complete either a speaker slip in hard copy, or as was mentioned by our clerk, we have a fairly new digital system, so you can now request to speak electronically. And we do have a 3-minute speaking limit, and we have that in place so that everyone has an opportunity to address the commission if they so choose. With that, our first item, please.
Consent item number 1, approved December 7th, 2015, draft action summary.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Jones. Chair will second. Voting members of the commission, let's do a voice vote on this.
Okay.
Roll call vote.
Dave Gordon.
Aye.
Beth Hassett.
Aye.
Olivia Kassiri.
Aye.
Paul Lake.
Since I was absent, I'll abstain.
Scott Moak.
Also absent, so I'll abstain.
Terrence Jones.
Aye.
Phil Cerna.
Aye.
Donna Sneringer.
I'll abstain. I was absent.
Steve Wirtz.
Aye.
Kathy Kosick.
I was absent, I'll abstain.
It's just the voting.
Oh,
Voting
sorry.
members.
They don't need to vote.
Yeah, we don't vote.
Call your alternates unless they're sitting in for someone.
Okay.
Did we get through all our voting members?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, and just as a friendly reminder, we're not at our capacity today in terms of the technology up here. We had a power surge, as the short story, last week, and so we're still trying to work our way through those challenges here at the dais with our screens. We won't be using the electronic voting today, but as a friendly reminder, if you are an alternate, if you could please remember, if you're not here instead of your principal member, you're certainly obviously welcome to participate in the conversation and discussion, but we're asking our principal members only to vote. All right, with that, next item, please.
Item 2, Executive Director's Report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I have a quick update for you on a couple of things. This state budget, we have Governor Brown's proposed budget was released in January. There was a couple of items of interest for the commissioners. First is it's a slight increase in early learning from 15-16 to 16-17, a 3% increase, as well as very interesting, a educational block grant that really combines a number of the early learning programs at the state level and would provide those as a block grant down to the county levels. So we don't have a lot of detail on it right now. Some commissioners may actually know a little bit more about it than I do, but I just wanted to put it on your radar. There is an early learning collaborative that is working to provide advice to the governor on the block grants and has been formed, so we'll keep you posted as that moves forward. And in the health arena, the budget also includes $182 million to provide full scope Medi-Cal to an estimated 170,000 undocumented children. A percentage of those are 0 to 5, but it's a fairly small percentage of that overall number. As far as First 5 California and First 5 Association update, our meetings were just held last week, and there was a strong emphasis on policy and advocacy. There was a town hall toolkit that First 5 California is going to develop and release to county commissions who are looking to engage parents and policymakers. So we're really looking forward to the release of that toolkit. We also heard from the First 5 Association, their policy platform for the year. First 5 Sacramento updates. I hope you all got a chance to see the Safe Sleep display out in the lobby. Today's the last day for that, so if you haven't seen it yet, take a look on your way out. CAPC coordinated that. Also, a new item in your packet today is the 2016 At a Glance Commission agenda topics. I was putting this together to help me figure out what I need to do for the rest of the year as far as what has to happen at each commission meeting, and I thought commissioners might actually like to get a heads up to know what's going to be on the agenda as well. So it's a work in progress, but it's the best that I know right now. I am very happy to say that we have a new staff person who will be joining us on February 8th. Her name is Latina Price. She comes to us from First 5 Yolo County. She has a master's degree in public administration and lots of experience working with family resource centers, funders, across the board experience, and she will be taking up our effective parenting birth and beyond monitoring, as well as focusing on sustainability policy and advocacy work for the commission. So really excited, and thank you to our commissioners who helped serve on the interview panel. I appreciate that. Dental outreach and education. We are in the process of developing an RFQ that will seek an agency to build upon our existing dental health outreach messages and really do more of a grassroots effort to reach families where they live, work, and play. And so our commissioners will see that process will take place from February through May, and commissioners will have it before them in June for the top candidate. We'll be working through advisory committee and others to develop that RFP. And this is exciting. For the first time ever, our Greater Sacramento region, our executive directors got together and we have created a Commissioner Summit. So the summit will be held on March 18th. It's here locally at Sierra Health Foundation, and we have up to 6 spots for commissioners from each county to participate in that. We will be talking about policy. We'll be talking about commissioners as champions. There will be discussion around leading through declining revenue. Lots of topics I think that are really relevant to this commission. On the advice of County Council, we'll be following the Brown Act for that, because if 6 commissioners do come, we will have a quorum, so we'll be posting things and making sure the community is aware of it. But if you are interested, I have 1 commissioner signed up and interested already. If you're interested, please let me know. I would love to have a great showing. I think it's going to be very worthwhile. We have some great speakers. lined up. There is a draft agenda in your packet, so you can see who's there. Also in your packet, I won't spend a lot of time on these, but I have 3 reports that I thought you might be interested in. The first is our Black Mothers United 18-month findings from the Cultural Broker Program at Community Center for Health and Wellbeing. They have some great findings. And we also have the updated study of dental geographic managed care for Sacramento County children. That report's not in, the study's not in your packet because we're going to have it as a full agenda item next month. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that it's out there. It's come before the Board of Supervisors, and we're doing some follow-up work on that right now. It's kind of exciting. Also in your packet is the Sacramento County Children's Scorecard, which Children Now provides an overall scorecard for each county and shows how it compares to the state averages on a number of indicators on child health and well-being. And there were some areas that we did very well and some areas where we still need to grow. So it's good to have it as sort of a trend, as a point in time, and then we look at it over the years to see how we do. For communications, we have our Pride and Joy Community Baby Shower is coming up in February, and on the 27th, there's an attachment in your packet, and we would love to have commissioner representation if you are able to. Just this morning, there was the Talk, Read, Sing press conference from First 5 California. I know several of you were out there, so if you have anything you want to add, that would be great. But they are launching the second version, 2.0, if you will, of the campaign, and had a kickoff right here at the Library Galleria downtown. And the Sacramento District Dental Society's Nugget Journal will have a whole journal edition dedicated to First Fives and the impact that First Five has had in children's oral health. So many of the staff and partners at First Five Sacramento are helping to contribute toward that article or toward that edition. We're really excited to have the opportunity. Thank you, Commissioner Jones. As far as our social engagement, we did have a Twitter party, talk, read, sing, shop, and cook. That's a lot of things that we covered on that Twitter party. And you can see our social media growth, monthly growth, is listed in the chart on the ED report. We did win a award, or we received an award from Russian American Media for having the best child development programs for Russian-speaking communities. It was very nice. And Intermedia had our digital ads with Intercom. We are continuing with our rotating child development ads, and also our ads in the Sacramento Observer and Russian Observer. That concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you, Julie. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Wirtz.
Thank you. Yes, I was able to have a chance to go to the press conference this morning and was very excited and pleased to see the event. We did have Jose Hernandez there from NASA as one of our space astronauts, who has been doing a bunch of wonderful things with children's issues over the years here. So we're really pleased to have him. It was a great showing. Sacramento was the co-host, and Aaron and team did an incredible job of preparing and having. The exciting thing was, I think Aaron said that they were trying to round up 15 kids to make sure they had 15 little kids there to show off, and they were overrun by over 60. So they were having a fun time there with all the displays and the presentations, and it was a great partnership. Camille was the host from First 5 California, and I think it was very successful, and Lee was there as well, and you may want to add some other aspects to it. So.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sneeringer.
I just wanted to fill in a couple more details on the early learning block grant proposal from the administration and the state budget. The proposal would consolidate the current transitional kindergarten program with the California State Preschool Program and the early learning block grant for the QRIS block grant that came to work with preschool. So it's taking some long-standing programs, some newer programs, and trying to put them into a single funding stream that would go to LEAs. It changes how they would be funded. Currently, transitional kindergarten is an ADA reimbursed program. This is not clear how it would be reimbursed. There are a lot of different questions. The Department of Finance is going to be hosting an extensive stakeholder process, the first of which is on February 19th. So those that are involved in state preschool or in transitional kindergarten that want to participate in those discussions, that's the first opportunity to weigh in.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Julie, all right. Seeing none?
Item
Julie.
3, public hearing, review, and adoption of the first 5 Sacramento Commission audit for fiscal year 2014-15.
We have our audit, and today to present our audit, we have Carly Ransom, who's manager.
Excuse me, is your mic on?
Sorry. Yeah, it's on now. Carly Ransom is here she's a manager with BTD, and she's here to present our audit for us today. Carly?
All right, good afternoon. As introduced, my name is Carly Ransom, and I'm with Fabernick Trine Day & Co., also known as BTD, and we are the Commission's independent third-party auditors. So as you look through the reports that were provided, we issued a total of 4 reports for fiscal year 2015, which I'm briefly going to go through, and also the results of those audits. So starting with the financial statement packet, if you look on page 1, the independent audit report. So this is our independent auditor's report that we issue at the end of the audit. If you look under the management's responsibility paragraph, so the management of the commission is responsible for preparing the financial statements, and we as the auditors are responsible for expressing an opinion on those financial statements, which is indicated under auditor's responsibility in the next paragraph. And then right below that is the opinion. So in our opinion, we believe that the financial statements do present the position of the commission as of June 30th, 2015. So we gave a clean opinion, otherwise known as a modified opinion, as a result of our audit. So if you keep going through the report to the back, page 32, this is a report that we're required to issue under government auditing standards, where as a part of our audit, we do assess the Commission's internal controls over financial reporting. We don't give an opinion on those controls. However, if there were any deficiencies noted, we would be communicating them here. So if you go down towards the end, I think the second to last statement, we indicated that we did not note any deficiencies as part of our audit that we consider to be material or significant, or that would be communicated or required to be communicated. And then the report following that on page 34, the independent auditor's report on state compliance. So in addition to a financial statement audit, the Commission is also required to have a state audit on certain compliance requirements that are noted in the Health and Safety Code. So the state controllers actually issues an audit guide, which we use for our audit in performing these procedures. So if you go down to the opinion section, where we list our opinion, as a result of our audit, we believe that the Commission complied with those requirements that are noted in the Health and Safety Code. So those are all the reports that are included in the financial statement packet. The other packet that we had was the single audit report. So when an entity receives over $500,000 in federal funding, they're required to have a single audit, which is an audit of that funding to make sure that the commission is using the funding appropriately and within federal guidelines. So on page 4 of this packet, this is our report on compliance for each major federal program. And it's similar to the financial statement report too. So if you go down to the opinion, we noted after our single audit procedures that the commission did comply with all the federal requirements put upon them by expending and receiving that federal funding. So those are the different audit reports that we prepared for the commission and the different audits that we performed for the commission for fiscal year 2015. There weren't any findings to note as a part of our audit or any audit adjustments. And that is also summarized on page, if you look at page 10 and 11 of the single audit report, it indicated that there were no financial statement findings or any federal award findings. So the last report that was provided, it's a letter to the board, and this communication is required under government auditing standards where we have to communicate certain items at the end of the audit. So the letter goes over certain things such as the qualitative aspects of accounting practices, accounting estimates. It lists all of the significant accounting estimates that were used by management in the financial statements. If there were any audit adjustments, they would be included in here, but as there were none as a result of our audit, you won't see those in here. And also if there were any difficulties encountered in performing the audit or disagreements with management, we would include those in here too, but we indicated here that we didn't run into any of those issues as part of our audit. And then also at the bottom, other matters. There is certain information included with the financial statements, such as the management discussion and analysis, and some schedules in the back, which are considered required supplementary information. So this paragraph just notes that for that RSI, we don't actually give an opinion on those schedules, but we do limited procedures over those, such as speaking with management to see how that information is prepared, and just making sure that that information can reconcile back to the financial statements, if applicable. So that is a summary of our audits that we performed this year, and also our audit findings, which we didn't note any for fiscal year 2015. So any questions?
Great, thank you. Any questions for our speaker? Okay, not seeing any. This is a public hearing item, so I'll open the public hearing and invite anyone from the public that wishes to address the commission on the item to the podium. I don't see anyone, so I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion and/or motion.
I will move to approve the audit.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Hassett. Was there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Roll call vote, please.
Dave Gordon,
Aye.
Beth Hassett,
Aye.
Olivia Kassiri,
Aye.
Paul Lake,
Aye.
Scott Moe,
Aye.
Terrence Jones,
Aye.
Phil Cerna.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Very good. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 4, public hearing, review and comment on the fiscal year 2016-2017 recommended budget and 10-year financial plan.
Okay. Okay, this budget is provided to you prior to being sent to the county exec's office for their review, and it's due to them the last week in February, which is earlier than expected. And then it will come back to you on May 2nd to present the recommended budget to you, and any changes from this version will be mentioned at that time. Then the final budget will come back to you in August for you to review before it's submitted to the county exec's office in September. If you'll turn to page 2, the recommended budget is $29.4 million as compared to $28.1 million in fiscal year 2015-16. And of that $29.4 million, $1.5 million is for administration, $0.7 million for evaluation, and the $27.2 million for program. And you see a side-by-side chart to show how it lines up with the prior year. Allocated costs included with the budget are $277,865, which is nearly the same as in 2015-16 budget, and this includes rent at $134,000. Personnel costs are $2.16 million as compared to $2.09 million in fiscal year 2015-16. The salaries include a 4% COLA, and personnel expenditures represent 7.4% of total proposed expenditures. The expenditures for program include $24.7 million in contracted services. And also within the budget, $3 million is rebudgeted in 2016-17 for the Golden State Water Company fluoridation project, which has been delayed due to a merger of water districts and requiring the redesign of their plan for fluoridation. There's listed are your program expenditures by result area, and then it gives an overview of the recommended revenue, and you'll see that we have revenues totaling $14,381,240, a projected fund balance of $4,927,577, and a reserve release of $10,072,589 for total revenue sources of $29,381,406. Negative interest earnings are projected for fiscal year 2015-16 due to the fact that in the last couple years we've had losses on the fair market value of the pooled investment fund, our portion of it, and so we're projecting again just because we don't know where that's going to fall out. MA revenue is expected to be higher in fiscal year 2015-16 because we had to defer the entire amount of our MA earnings last year because the state was behind in invoicing us, and so we're expecting some of that to be paid to us in the coming year. And the budget year will begin with an estimated fund balance of $48.2 million and end with a proposed fund balance of $33.2 million. Our reserve at the beginning of this year is expected to be $48.2 million, which and $48.2 million. Then for the 10-year financial plan, we have some assumptions included within it, including an annual allocation reduction of 3% this year, based on the trend of smokers shifting to e-cigarettes. And then we have expect our MA earnings for the coming years to be stable. Expense projections include a 2% annual COLA, and the Golden State Fluoridation Project is projected to be delayed, as we discussed, so that's carried over, and then it will finish in the year 2017-18. And budget reductions after fiscal year 2017-18 are projected to be 22.3% reduction, and after fiscal year 2021 are expected to be 43.6% reduction. The recommended budget totals $9,381,406 is funded by the annual allocation miscellaneous revenue, $4,927,577 of the projected fund balance, $10,071,589 in reserves, and for a total ending fund balance of $33,860,264. And attached is was Tony's summary, and we're keeping it. We will change the name to budget highlights. And the expenditure breakdown is the same in the letter. Personnel is included at $2.2 million, contractors at $24.8 million, and services and supplies at $2.4 million. And projected expenditures by type of provider is just noting that there's $12.3 million going to community-based organizations, which is a little bit more than the total going to the other agencies. Then you have your budget detail attached and your 10-year plan attached. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for staff? I have a suggestion.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily applicable this year, but in the future years, when we were asked to review and comment on the budget, I think it would be helpful to look back 3 to 5 years, what our actuals were with regard to program expenditures by result area. I'd like to see, for instance, a series of pick your chart, pie chart, bar charts, whatever, that shows any change in the program area expenditures over time. I think maybe 5 years would be helpful.
Okay.
I just think it would better inform the commission and the public in terms of kind of where our priorities might be changing, or where we're exploiting in a good way opportunities that perhaps we didn't have a few years prior. So that's the first suggestion. And then I'm looking on page 4, and you mentioned it about the allocation reduction of 3% based on smokers shifting to e-cigarettes. Has First Five California, or is there any study that's been commissioned out there that shows what we think our diminishing revenues are going to be because of cessation from smoking, but now amplified with smokers of cigarettes shifting to e-cigarettes? Have you seen anything like that?
I haven't, but I can look and provide it to you.
I think it's going to be important for this commission, probably all commissions across the state, to understand that trend, because, you know, since Prop 10 was instituted, I think there was always a very clear assumption that by design our revenues are intended to decline. But this is a fairly recent advent, that is the demand for e-cigarettes. And so that, to me, says that there's going to be some acceleration of that. And it'd be good for us to know that, especially when we're talking about budgets.
Yes.
I agree. It's been about 2% decline just through cessation, smoking cessation, each year. And last year we saw a 3.8% decline in revenue, and I think that did have to do with the e-cigarettes. But there hasn't been a study done yet that I know of through the First Five California or the association, but I can certainly look into it.
Julie, if there's not already some other interest that's been expressed that's similar to the one I'm expressing, would you mind talking to the right people at First Five California to see that perhaps some formal study is commissioned that would be of benefit, I think, to all 58 First Fives?
Sure, will do.
Okay, Commissioner Wirtz?
Thank you. Just one follow-up. Julie, I may be able to look at our California Department of Public Health Tobacco Control branch, who does track this. And as you know, the director of the California Department of Public Health put out a health advisory around the e-cigarettes last year, and I think that department and branch is focused a lot on that. So they may well have some projections or some knowledge that might be useful. So I can put you in touch with the branch chief or whatever there. So I had two quick questions on the budget pieces. Do I understand correctly? Probably I don't. About the $3 million that is the continuation for the fluoridation project. Was that is part of the $29.4 million? First of all, and second, we didn't, in terms of budgeting, we didn't per se have that planned because we thought it was going to be expended before, correct? So the fact that this year's expenditure is higher than last year's is partly due to that $3 million, or predominant, the $3 million is more than the difference. Is that a correct understanding?
Correct.
In 2015-16, there was $2.2 million budgeted for that project, and then it was supposed to be $1.6 million in 2016-17.
Got it. And yet now it's $3 million.
$3 million.
So we added about $1.4 million, which covers the $1.3 million over what we had budgeted before.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. The second comment I'm going to make, and I had sent it to Julie earlier, I'm just asking perhaps for and it sounds like the Finance Committee has been exploring this, but as we get planning around the budget reductions in 2018-19, there are obviously a couple different ways of approaching it, and I'm hoping that you're going to be considering, instead of having a 23% drop in that 1 year and then stable for the next 3, and then a 43% drop in the following 3 years. I'm wondering if there could be consideration, or it would certainly have to involve communications with our provider network and so on, about the possibility of having a more sloped process. For example, if you cut 15% in that year instead of 23, then you could cut 10 or 15 the next 2 years and be in a position to have that slope be fairly more smooth. Excuse me. Yeah. So I'm assuming the committee has explored that and will continue doing it. But I would urge us to at least consider that, to see whether that is a better way to run program or not. I mean, it may be harder for programs to have that built in every year. So just a thought. But I think it's important to reflect on those on those different options.
Great. Commissioner Elliott, then Commissioner Jones.
I just had a quick question, and it's kind of an assumption, but something in your presentation triggered a thought. So when you're doing the interest earnings calculations, you're using a formula, right? Because there is a formula for the market in predicting that. I mean, it's a volatile market, and you can't predict it, which you said, but you do apply that general formula to, right, or no?
The county earnings have been, 0.0025%.
Yeah.
So we've ratcheted it up a little bit over time, assuming that things are going to get better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, maybe I'll ask you that offline.
Yeah, okay.
And then the other thought was to follow up what Phil had said about the 5-year look back. And my question was to the Financial Planning Committee, if that's something that they do in their analysis and study of the Commission's finances, because I assume that that's a part of it as well, but I just wanted kind of validation around that.
That is something we haven't done specifically, but we certainly will be looking at both what Commissioner Wirtz had mentioned in the future because of the severity of the decline in revenue. We need to be seriously planning for the future.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jones, then Commissioner Turner-Johnson.
I just want to go back to the e-cigarette discussion, and I know most of us know this already, but I just want to remind them that there is a Save Lives California ballot initiative that would add a $2 pack fee on the cigarettes, and that money collected would also include e-cigarettes. So there would be some, and it's I think it's acceptable with First Five California, the whole ballot initiative. So there may be some mitigating factors that would go into the decrease in tobacco tax alone.
Commissioner Turner-Johnson, then Commissioner Moak.
Just a remark regarding the research that Supervisor Cerna mentioned. George Halverson, who's I think the head of your First Five California Commission, was there this morning at the event Steve and I attended. And it seems that his background also is related to health tremendously. And I think that he would be a very good person to talk to about what research may exist, or certainly would be interested going forward with such research.
Commissioner Moak, then Commissioner Cossack.
Thanks. Just a kind of comment and a question. It really is more of just another pat on the back to our MA providers and what First Five has universally been able to do in terms of generate extra and grow revenue. I mean, we do have a couple of providers now that are generating additional money. So, I mean, I just don't want to lose that. In that we have providers that are also bringing money to the table, and I think that's vitally important, especially as the cliff, or maybe now the gradual slope. It sounds better than a cliff, anyway. Gradual slope will be upon us.
As long as it's not slippery.
As long as that slope is not slippery, that's right. And then I want to go back to Golden State Water Company. At some point, like, don't we have to just kind of call it? I mean, I feel like I've been on this commission longer than I like to admit, and I feel like the majority of that time has been spent trying to give water companies resources to which they're not wanting them in some. That's what this feels like anyway. That's not probably the most articulate way to put it, but it definitely feels like we know what we want to do, we know what we want to accomplish, we've seen results in what fluoridation means, but I mean, when we're carrying forward millions of dollars for them to do this work, it just, something doesn't feel right about that.
I can answer that a little bit, and then this is actually on the agenda for us to discuss the next item down. But in this case, they do have every intention of working with us in fluoridating the water. The situation that came up was that they had to run a pipeline from a different water source, and so I feel like it's a pretty legitimate reason to need an extension for this one. But I will explain that in the next item, but I hear you.
Commissioner Jones.
I just want to follow up on that. Golden State Water Company is one of the few water companies that is proactively seeking out fluoride contracts. So they have been very good in Southern California, and I think they expressed the interest that they wanted to do something up here in California, in Sacramento area. So they've been very good. But with all fluoride contracts, the devil or God is in the details. So, so you want to make sure, and they do as well, that, everybody understands fully what all the ramifications are. And I think we will talk about it in the next one.
Okay, very good. No other commissioners are signed up to speak or ask questions of staff. This is a public hearing item, so I will open the public hearing. Invite any members of the public to address the commission on the subject. Not seeing any. Close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission for further discussion and or a motion. Chair will move the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded by Commissioner Gordon. Roll call vote, please.
Dave Gordon.
Aye.
Beth Hassett. Aye. Olivia Kasiri.
Aye.
Paul Lake. Aye. Scott Moak.
Aye.
Terrence Jones.
Aye.
Bill Cerna.
Aye. Motion carries. Very good. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 5, approval of First Amendment to the contract with Golden State Water Company.
Thank you. And just like that, we're talking about it again. So this is a recommendation to approve our First Amendment with Golden State Water Company that would allow them to complete in this fiscal year a feasibility study to get a much better handle on the actual cost to fluoridate the two areas, Arden Arcade and Folsom Cordova area. It was determined that this additional water source was needed, and the pipeline would be coming to connect and tie the system together. It was not included in the original contract, so that's why we need this amendment. The study is $16,370. It's included in their overall much larger budget. So no additional funds are being requested at this time. It really is a time extension, and it would also sort of suspend all the other work on the contract until we actually know the price for moving forward and what would need to happen. In our discussions with Golden State, they definitely have given every indication that they would like to fluoridate, that they're enthusiastic about the project. But we just don't know enough to know what to do with that yet. So we're basically asking for a suspension of the current scope of work to simply focus on the feasibility study and then bring back to you next fiscal year a request for what to do, the next step would be.
Okay. Any questions for Julie? Commissioner Wirtz.
Just a clarification on the proposed budget then. In essence, then, this additional $1.4 million that was added to this year's budget would then be essentially on hold until the following year.
The whole $3.8 million is on hold.
Okay.
Yes. Only authorizing $16,000 this year for the feasibility study.
And it takes a year to do the feasibility study?
They're going to start now. They estimated about 4 months, which would bring us toward the end of the fiscal year. So I thought I would bring it back as a part of next year's budget.
Okay.
Commissioner Moak?
So paying for a feasibility study for them to determine the cost that we think is going to be $3.8 million.
Correct.
And then they come back and say it's $4.5 million.
It's a possibility. And then this commission would have to make a decision what to do with that money at that point.
Is anybody here from Golden State Water Company?
Yes.
Kathy? Yeah, Kathy Lawson is here from Golden State.
Awesome. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kathy Lawson. I'm a water quality engineer with Golden State Water Company.
Great. Help me.
I will do my best.
Thank you.
So when this project got started, we had identified all of the sources. We have actually 2 separate water systems that are looking for funding for fluoride. Our Cordova system serves the majority of the city of Rancho Cordova, as well as a portion of Gold River. Our water sources for that system are a combination of groundwater and surface water. We get water from the American River by way of the Folsom South Canal. We have a surface water treatment plant that treats that water and distributes it. And we also have currently 8 groundwater wells. The challenge for us in the Cordova system is that we have been greatly impacted by groundwater contamination from the Aerojet Rocketdyne Superfund site. We have, starting back in 1997, when perchlorate was detected in the water, we have had to decommission a number of our wells, put treatment on certain other wells. There was a legal agreement that was signed between Golden State Water and Aerojet, and Aerojet is essentially on the hook to provide us with replacement water for any sources that we lose due to contamination from the plume on the Superfund site. This new project, which is a pipeline under the American River, it's extending from the Carmichael Water District. Their existing surface water treatment plant would extend under the river and connect into our distribution system. And it's a very convoluted path, but that water is actually water that is extracted from the groundwater by Aerojet. They treat that water. They then discharge that water into the American River once it's been cleaned up. And so essentially what we're doing is we're picking up that water downstream from where they're putting it in. So as you know, California water rights are very complicated, and but this is one way that they were able to provide us with some replacement water. Carmichael had some extra capacity in their treatment plant, so it was kind of a win-win for everyone. So, but again, when this fluoride project was started, it was not something that was on the table. And we are required by the State Water Resources Control Board, Division of Drinking Water, to provide fluoride for all of our sources in the system. There are regulations regarding maintaining an optimal fluoride dosing within the entire system. So it is critical that we look at this new source and incorporate it into the overall plan.
So if we didn't provide the fluoride, who does?
So the legislation from a long time ago said that if you have more than a certain number of connections, you're mandated to fluoridate. If funding for the construction is provided by an alternate source. So in other words, you don't have to go to your ratepayers to get funding for fluoridation equipment. And so that's where First Five stepped in and said, hey, we'll provide the funding for the fluoridation equipment, and then once we've done that piece, then Water District, you're responsible for actually the operations and maintenance costs, including the cost of the actual fluoride that then goes into the water system.
Yep.
And so that's what the various water districts, including Golden State, have agreed to do. And does that help?
Well, I still think in the absence of First Five, how it would you wouldn't do it? You wouldn't fluoridate the water?
I don't see that we would be approved to expend funds and having to raise the rates of our customers. I don't see that probably would be approved by the Public Utilities Commission.
May I also add, I'm part of the California Fluoride Task Force, CDA, and all throughout California. Fluoride is a very expensive, very complicated, involving a lot of different water districts and a lot of hookups for those water districts. First Five has been a particularly important source of funding for the not the operation and maintenance, but really providing that initial equipment and cost. And so it is a partnership that First Five, not just Sacramento, but throughout the state, has entered into with the water districts. If First Five provides that initial funding for the facility fees, then the water district agrees for ongoing cost. The initial funding is much less than that ongoing cost. So it's a win-win for most First Fives and for the communities in which these water project goes. To date, none of the water projects that First Five Sacramento, or to my knowledge, anybody else in California, has stopped. So if you have ongoing 20 years of operation and maintenance, that initial treatment cost is minor in comparison. So I think it's a very wise investment.
Thank you. Commissioner Elliott?
Well, it's just a thought. So I didn't understand this initially. The equipment then is what we're buying. So based on the details just outlined, the equipment cost will be different because of the logistics that weren't in place initially? Okay.
Because of a new source of water.
Right.
And as our...
so there will be a need for more equipment. The 3.8 will go up. I mean, I think we can all assume that to a certain degree then.
I think you're premature. I mean, the particulars of this particular resolution is that we allow the study to go forward. Then at a subsequent meeting, we will then have a discussion that will verify whether we do it or not.
Understood. I'm just, again, making a statement.
Commissioner Wirtz?
I'm looking forward to see what happens also, but just to clarify, it seems to me that there may not be an increase, given that the water is coming into the river and the river access points may be similar. So we don't know yet whether there will actually be more cost or not, or at least us non-experts don't.
Okay, any further questions for staff? If not,
I move to approve.
okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hassett. I don't have anyone sign up to speak. Roll call vote, please.
Dave Gordon.
Aye.
Beth Hassett.
Aye.
Olivia Kassiri.
Aye.
Paul Lake.
Aye.
Scott Moak.
No.
Terrence Jones.
Aye.
Phil Cerna.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item 6, approve and authorize the Executive Director to execute the Fourth Amendment to the First 5 Sacramento Commission Facility Lease Agreement.
Thank you. This item would allow the First 5 Commission staff to stay in our building for the next 5 years. The Fourth Amendment extends the lease, reducing the price per square footage, per square foot, from $1.90 a square foot down to $1.75 beginning August 1st of 2016. It also reduces the cost the Commission pays for waste recycling by $95 per month. The cost savings in the first year of the amendment is estimated at $11,105 over the prior year because of the lease rate negotiated by county real estate. So staff are recommending that we approve the amendment to the lease.
Okay, very good. I don't have anyone sign up to speak. Anyone care to make a motion? Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Lake. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Roll call vote, please.
Dave Gordon.
Aye.
Beth Hassett.
Aye.
Olivia Kassiri.
Aye.
Paul Lake.
Aye.
Scott Moak.
Aye.
Terrence Jones.
Aye.
Phil Cerna.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 7, funded program presentation, Project SOARS.
Thank you. We typically have a presentation from our funded partners. Today we have members of SCOE who will be talking to us about Project SOARS. We have Nancy Hirota and Andrea Lemos.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We are very appreciative of this opportunity to share with you highlights of Project SOAR, a project that was funded by the Commission back in 2014. Project SOARS, which stands for Project Outreach, Screening, Outreach, and Referral Services, has been a very strong model of collaboration, and throughout this presentation, we'll be sharing with you highlights of our collaboration. We will begin by sharing with you highlights of the work that was completed in the initial 18-month pilot. And when the Commission continued this funding for the next 3 years, we just began our expansion in July, and so we will then move into how we have expanded services through Project SOARS. The goal of Project SOARS has been to reach out to children and families in underserved, isolated communities. And our focus has been to ensure that children and families obtain access to early intervention, special education services for those children where there are concerns around developmental delays and/or disabilities. This initiative has been this model has been very strategic in terms of reaching out to partners that are working with families who are living in high-risk communities. And so we have worked very closely with social service agencies. We have targeted homeless shelters, transitional housing programs, as well as permanent housing programs, and have worked very closely with these partners to ensure that families are accessing our services. We, in this initial pilot, hired 2 family advocates, and we're very pleased to share with you the extensive work that was conducted in this pilot. And as you can see on this slide, there are 3 key areas of focus in terms of this project. The first focuses on providing education, outreach, and training that includes information about the importance of early intervention services and where and how to access these resources. And these information sessions are provided to both providers who work in the community as well as to parents. A primary focus of this initiative has been to provide that direct family support, and this has been accomplished through home visits, working directly with families in the community and offering these free voluntary developmental screenings, and most importantly, the follow-up referral support to help families access early intervention special education services. The next slide here highlights our partnership, and I have to say the success of this model has been as a result of the strong partnerships with many, many agencies throughout Sacramento County. We have partnered with over 15 different agencies in this initial pilot. The social service agencies that we work very closely with to receive referrals for these developmental screenings include the Birth and Beyond Family Resource Centers operated by the Child Abuse Prevention Council. We have worked closely with the Sacramento Food Bank, and we have established a very strategic approach in working with social workers from Child Protective Services. A primary focus of our services has been to target our collaboration with transitional housing programs, programs like WEAVE, as well as a number of agencies that are listed here. You can see that each of these agencies operate a number of programs, transitional housing programs at various sites. And so when you look down this list here, our family advocates have provided services at 18 different sites, and so they have worked extensively in saturating and ensuring that families are accessing these services throughout the community. Other key partners in this collaboration has been our collaboration with Alta Regional Center, our own Sacramento County Office of Education Infant Development Program, and then of course school districts to make the referrals and help families access these services. But you'll see throughout the presentation that we have also provided many, many other referrals that focus on the importance of early intervention, and so we're pleased to be able to share with you highlights of that. I will now turn it over to Dr. Andrea Lemos, who is the director in our Special Education Division at Sacramento County Office of Education, who will focus on our work in the area of education, outreach, and training.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Excuse me. One key area of focus in this pilot program was to conduct outreach and education for parents and providers, and that continues to grow. So through our pilot program, the Project Source team worked very closely with the Sacramento County Office of Education's Infant Development Program and Alta Regional Center to conduct outreach through joint presentations to a variety of agencies, staff, and parents. The focus of the outreach sessions was to build awareness of early intervention and to connect families to these appropriate services, early identification and, early intervention. So parent workshops have been and continue to be offered in a variety of sites throughout the community, including the Sacramento County Food Bank, Meadowview Family Resource Center, and a variety of transitional housing sites. These workshops focus on developmental milestones, warning signs, and information on how to access early intervention services. Workshops are offered in English and Spanish, and we have the capacity for other languages as needed. And during the pilot, a total of 107 parents attended these parent workshops. Community outreach has also taken place with new and experienced Child Protective Service social workers and supervisors. During statewide conferences, we've been able to share information, and also to teams being trained to work with the Birth and Beyond Family Resource Centers through CAPC. Information again regarding resources, school readiness, and early intervention services for children. Birth through 5 has been provided, and all the resources within Sacramento County were shared. And we continue to build upon that outreach, and we'll talk a little more about that later. So the Project Source team collaborated with a variety of agencies, including Alto Regional Center, Set a Head Start, Scoey's Foster Youth Program, in order to provide a more comprehensive view of the services in the county. They were very well received by parents and community partners, sometimes sharing information that people were really not aware of, and really knowing the importance of getting the services and supports early, shown through, and a lot of the data that Nancy will show as well. In addition to the parent workshops and community outreach, there have been opportunities for us to engage in some professional learning together. And one example is through the Shuffle Teaching Pyramid, which focuses home visitors on supporting social emotional development in young children. And teams came together and were able to engage in that learning and supporting families, coaching families and strategies to support their children's social emotional development at early ages, and then that helps to carry through beyond that as well. So that was an exciting partnership. Another primary focus is providing direct support to children and their families in an ongoing way. The services are free and voluntary and offered through home visits, but also that connection to agencies, so referrals to different agencies, and then the follow-through with those referrals, which is really supportive with the family advocates. The family advocates conduct home visits, they do developmental screenings, they develop family action plans, and then they also refer children for further assessments to maybe determine eligibility for early intervention services or school-based services. And then they provide ongoing support to address the comprehensive needs of the family, and will walk the families through the steps as needed, as much as needed. Some need more support and some need less, but they're there along the way to answer questions. The primary goal of these services is to ensure that young children who may have a potential delay or disability are referred to early intervention services. And when families are in transition or don't have as stable housing, as you all know, it's harder to follow up with those services, and also for providers to be connected as well with the services and the family. So this has been a great partnership. Now Dr. Hirota will share some information about the screening and referral process. Advance the slide.
So a primary focus of this project has been to reach out and provide developmental screenings and the referral follow-up for families who are eligible to be referred. In terms of this model, one of the key strategies that has really, again, helped in the success of this model is the partnership with our transitional housing partners. They have incorporated and have streamlined a process where at the point of intake, when families begin to receive services from these transitional housing programs or social service agencies, they're offering our Project Source services to families, so that at the point of entry, they're making referrals to our family advocates and Project Soars. And at the sites, our family advocates have really become an extension of the staff at the sites. They don't see our staff as outsiders coming in. They've built such a strong partnership that they really are seen as an extension, and as a result, the trust is there, and families are requesting our the developmental screenings that we're able to offer. The tool that we utilize to conduct the developmental screenings is the Ages and Stages questionnaire. There are two tools. One is also focused on social emotional development, and this is a tool that can be utilized for children from 2 months all the way through age 5. It's conducted in a way where where family advocates are sitting down and interviewing the family, but then they're also bringing resources and having children demonstrate their skills in terms of different developmental areas. The process in which the referrals come in have been, again, streamlined, and as a result of the screenings, children are either identified as typically developing, they may be identified as needing to be monitored, or children are identified as needing a referral. And so our family advocates individualize the support to families depending on the outcome of that of that screening tool. And so our family advocates do work with families over time who need to be monitored, and they do go back and they do rescreen the children. And then for those children who need to be referred, I'll talk more extensively about the follow-up that is provided to our families in terms of helping them access these services. And that really has been, again, the success of this model in that our family advocates are really closely working with families to help them navigate and understand the system and understand the array of services, and that's been really instrumental in terms of helping our families access these services. This slide provides a summary. We have referred to this as the 18-month pilot, but the reality is by the time our contract was in place, by the time we hired our staff and had them trained, this really reflects services that began in April 2014. And so in a very short period of time, from April 2014 through June 30th, 2015, this summarizes the full range of services that were provided by 2 family advocates at 15 different, working with 15 different agencies at 18 different sites. So as you can see, our family advocates, they conducted over 1,100 home visits. The combination of the ages and stages social emotional developmental screening tool equals 436 screenings that were conducted out in the community. Our target initially was to focus on, it was about 75 family action plans, but as you can see, our family advocates far exceeded that target, and so families were able to receive that individualized support through the development of these family action plans. And I'll talk in more detail about the 87 referrals that were made for children who had where there were concerns, whether they were developmental delay concerns or other medical needs. And then because our family advocates are working extensively through home visits and working very closely with families, they have also been able to provide an array of support by referring families to meet comprehensive needs that go beyond concerns around developmental delays. And so, again, this is a nice summary, and it's a total of over 2,000 services that were provided in those 14 months. This slide here identifies all of the areas that I just described in terms of the service areas, but this breaks it down and it disaggregates the data by agency. And so this kind of data has been really helpful as we have met quarterly with all of our transitional housing and social service agency partners. We meet on a quarterly basis, and it's been really valuable to share with our collaborative partners where these services have been focused. And this is information that we share at these collaborative meetings, and we have relied on their feedback in terms of how we can continue to expand our support as well as continue to refine our work. And so again, this kind of information has not only been helpful for us to assess where the greatest needs are, but certainly for our collaborative partners. This slide summarizes all of the referrals that were made, that were offered for families during this 14-month pilot. And I will begin by focusing on the referrals that were made in the area of developmental delays, mental health concerns, or medical referrals. There were a total of 87 referrals that were made. Of the 87 referrals, 64 referrals were made for children who had a potential developmental disability, and 23 referrals were made in the area of mental health concerns. And of these children who were referred, 68% of the children were able to access services. And what I mean by accessing services is that they either completed the full assessment process and began receiving either an IEP or an individualized family service plan, or they were assessed as and deemed not eligible for services. But either way, they were able to access. And of that 68%, 42 were eligible for services. And I think what's really important to note here is that the types of disabilities that children were identified with, these are children who typically we've seen who have had significant language delays. We have identified through this project a number of children who have autism. These are numbers, but if we had more time, if we could share with you just the extent, and we have the good fortune of a parent who is here today who will be able to share her story with you, but just know that behind these numbers, it represents many hours of support that our family advocates have provided to ensure that parents had access to the assessments, and which included oftentimes multiple visits to doctors, school districts, etc. And so our family advocates have played a key role in helping our families access these services, and it's been just an incredible project in terms of this collaboration. The other categories where our family advocates have been able to provide support in terms of accessing other services for children, you can see that one of the largest areas, the other largest areas of referrals have been to ensure families access early Head Start, other preschool programs. We also, another large area has been to connect families to the Birth and Beyond Family Resource Centers. Because of the isolated nature of many of the agencies and programs that our families are served by, they oftentimes, what we have learned is they were not aware that there were these kinds of services available. We have often heard from many parents that they didn't realize that these services were available and that they were under the impression that they had to wait until kindergarten to access these services. And so our family advocates have really played an important role in ensuring families not only access these services by providing that support, but by providing them this information that they need. This slide highlights our expansion. The Commission provided funding to continue and build upon the successful model over the next 3 years. We began our expansion in July 1st of this last year, and we have been able to hire we have a third family advocate on board now. I also want to take this opportunity to share with you that in the initial 18-month pilot, it was just about 8 months into the project, the executive director from the Northern California Lutheran Social Services Agency felt so strongly about the importance of this partnership, and she worked with us along with Phil Cerna and others to have the information about this program published in a national publication, and you do have a copy of that in your packet. This current year, we have expanded our partnerships, and we are now working with the Sacramento Crisis Nursery, both at the North Area site and the South Area site. We have expanded our partnership, and we are now working with Mustard Seed, which is a program for homeless children in the downtown area. We have also expanded our partnership with Child Protective Services, and we'll be working with them much more closely in a number of arenas. We have also been able to add an additional screening in terms of what we offer for families, and through Commission funds we purchased an audiometer as well as a vision screening tool, and our family advocates bring these tools out into the community, and they are now also offering vision and hearing screening. So I am now going to turn it back over to Dr. Lemos, who will talk about some of our other expanded efforts in the upcoming years.
Down for a second. With the expansion of the program services, nurses and other team members from our infant development program will be involved in outreach to pediatricians, specifically at Kaiser through this work initially, and then we'll continue to expand. We have some other partnerships, but we're going to be presenting to the larger meeting of pediatricians, as well as individual pediatric offices in Rancho Cordova, Point West, and South Sacramento. So that partnership and outreach that's critical to the work we all do is really nice that it's coming together together. And we understand the importance of having pediatricians really understand the resources that are in the community and make referrals that allow children to have access as early as possible, and understanding the critical importance of getting kids to those referrals sooner rather than just saying, why don't we wait a little while? So we understand the importance of that and want to get out more. So that partnership is expanding and coming together, and we're really appreciative. Additionally, a closer partnership with Warm Line Family Resource Center, whose work focuses on children with developmental delays and disabilities and their families, and Kelly Young is here today too as part of Warm Line. And we are looking at more outreach to families through Warm Line, parent engagement opportunities, and more resources for families. And they're also engaging in some developmental monitoring work for children who don't qualify for early start services, but to give them something to kind of keep on track and make sure that the children are not falling farther behind. So that's a wonderful partnership. Families receive these developmental bags with some information. They have age-appropriate toys. They're based on the age of the child. There are some books in here, resources. There's in English and Spanish, a lot of them are, so the resources on developmental milestones. Warm Line has put together a really nice packet of information, so if families have concerns, understanding sort of the development and what is typical development and whether or not children are making progress. And these nice bags that were also designed with First Five and Sacramento County Office of Education and Warm Line and other partners. So little Project Source bags for families too, so expanding that outreach and information. And also including the importance of play and that social emotional development and how families can engage in strategies to really support that ongoing development of their young child and as they go forward. And then one of the next steps that we're looking into and looking forward to is, and learning more about, is the Help Me Grow work, which is an approach to a comprehensive coordinated system for early detection, referral, and care coordination of children who are at risk, and then connecting them to the needed services. So kind of a bigger model of kind of the Project Source work and having sort of that central point of access. So that seems to tie in really well with the work of Project Source, so we're looking further into that. And we look forward to continuing the collaboration and appreciate the opportunity to share the work that we're doing for young children and families in Sacramento County. And I know Dr. Hirota will now have a couple other presenters share with you.
So that concludes our formal presentation, but we do have a number of our collaborating partners here with us today, and we also have a parent as well as a couple of our providers who would like to share with you their personal stories in terms of the impact of this work. And so at this time, I would like to invite Heather Mustejo up to the podium, who will share her experience and the services that she received. Following Ms. Mustejo, I will then turn it over to Brian Talcott from the Women's Empowerment Center and Amy Lawrence from Lutheran Social Services to share their feedback. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Mustejo.
Hi, everybody. My name is Heather Mustejo, and I was probably one of the first parents that got screened. My child did at, I live at Cerna Village, and that was about 1.5 years ago. And I wasn't going to get emotional. It's been quite a journey. It has. And I am so grateful for Project Source, because I don't know what I would do without my family advocate. As being a parent and being told that your child has got some developmental challenges and you need screening, it can be a very scary process. And I'm very grateful to Kirsten that she was there to hold my hand through all of it. And because of her, I was connected to Alta Regional. She walked me through to get my IEP for my son. My son was diagnosed with autism, and today I have connections with Warm Line. I have connections with, I have an IEP. My son goes to a special needs preschool. I'm getting ABA services, which they come to my home and provide for my son. Therapy, 5 days a week. It's just been such a blessing to have that. And if I don't know what I would do as being a mom, because I didn't know anything about the special needs programs. I didn't know anything what it was to be a special needs parent. And having Kirsten walk through and hold my hand with me and advocate with me and help me, just really, I don't know where I'd be without her. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Brian Talcott. I'm the Program Director at Women's Empowerment. And we came into this project as a partner during the very first phase, and I was really excited. We are a job readiness program for homeless and previously homeless women and their children as well, and so we have a child development center on site. I have great staff, but when we started identifying kids with special needs, we needed help, and Nancy walked through my door one day and introduced herself, and we've had a partnership with them now for well over a year to be able to do those screenings. My staff can do the screenings, but it's that piece afterwards and that advocacy that the family advocates provide for the parents and walk them through that is just priceless. So I'm going to keep my comments short because I want to hear from the other folks, but this has been a really, really smart investment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Amy Lawrence from Lutheran Social Services, and I so appreciated Nancy talking about trust. We've gotten some credibility from families coming from transitional housing to our permanent housing program, and we say, oh, Project SOARS, and they say, oh, Project SOARS. They light up, which is a refreshing thing for people to talk about service providers. So that has been a bridge of trust for our staff as well. When we first heard about Project SOARS, it was kind of an easy decision to say, yes, please come. But having said yes, I want to add a little bit, maybe fill in some pieces to the presentation you already heard about some benefits that we've experienced and the families in our program. Families generally have many really good reasons why it's difficult to engage in services. A lot of people have come from places where they've had damaging relationships, and so trusting anybody is difficult. And then there are also often a lot of good reasons to not trust agencies or institutions that can feel impersonal or really difficult to access. People feel like they just don't even get me or where I'm coming from. Why should I even start with a new person who's probably going to try to figure out everything that's going wrong rather than noticing what I'm working really hard to try to do right? Some people feel like nothing's wrong with my child, I don't really need anything, or I'm really scared that something is wrong with my child, and if there is something that's going on, is there going to be support for me? Are you going to judge me? Am I setting up my child for judgment? So there are lots of really good reasons why people particularly don't want to engage in something that's related to their child. And so in the relationship with the family advocates that have come, we've been able to kind of arrange for introductions, so there's sort of a non-threatening way to engage in services. And I can tell you that every parent who has taken that chance to engage with the family advocate has had a positive experience, and whether that led to further service engagement or not based on their own child's needs. We hadn't anticipated the ripple effect that engaging in these services would have for the whole family. So mothers who have a child who has some kind of special need have found that they now have professional support and an ally that's working with them to help them engage in the services that they need for their child. They've learned parenting strategies to support the needs of their particular child, and they themselves have received support and encouragement. And I can tell you, because we're permanent housing, so families are there for a while, that we get the opportunity to see parents come in with their children and how they interact with their children differently over the months that they've been involved in services. So there's something very encouraging and empowering for the parents who have felt supported all along the way in this process. And there's a secret selfish benefit that I will tell you as a service provider, which is that we want to do everything for the families in our programs, and we are not early childhood developmental specialists. And so to have people come in, family advocates who are truly partners with us, it gives us a little relief to know that there's a need that's being addressed that we are not professionally trained to meet. So it's been a real gift to our to those individual children in our programs, to their parents, their families, and to our community. And so I thank you very much for your support of their work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also just very quickly wanted to just take this time to acknowledge our team of Project SOAR's family advocates and our Project SOAR specialists, if you'll stand. These are the individuals who are working so hard and diligently out in the communities. And we also have today a number of our partners who are here to support the program. And so if I could have all of our collaborating partners stand. I know we have representatives from Mustard Seed. We have representatives from Lutheran Social Services, Sacramento Crisis Nursery, Volunteers of America, Warmline, and Next Move. And so we truly could not do this work without everyone's support. And it has had, as you can hear, as you've heard from our parent and many parents throughout the community, it has made such a difference in the lives of so many children here in Sacramento County.
Very good. Thank you, Nancy, and thanks to everyone for your hard work and dedication to this obviously very successful and worthy initiative. Are there any questions, first of all, for Nancy? This is just a presentation where there's no action. I know Commissioner Wirtz wants to speak here in a minute, but I just want to, on behalf of the entire commission, express our sincerest thanks for all the heavy lifting that you do, and as was mentioned by one of the speakers, really providing a complement of services that it's pretty surgical, and there aren't a lot of other outlets for the kind of services you provide. So we're fortunate in this community to have a lot of care expressed, whether it be for homeless folks and families, whether it be early learning in general. But this is, as I mentioned, a very detailed set of skills that are applied to really focus on children in our community that really need early attention and careful attention. So thank you. Commissioner Wirtz.
Thank you, Commissioner Cerna. This is an area that's really close to my heart as well. I'm trained as a developmental psychologist, and working with First Five earlier on, we really identified this issue of the potential gap of services from birth to the time that kids are identified and are able to get services. And we know from everything in the literature that early intervention, meaning starting at birth or as soon thereafter, is critical to mitigating any kinds of impacts that have happened with the child, be it connected to the birth or to the other circumstances in the environment. So I am just so pleased that First Five has taken on this issue. It was a gap in our services, and I am just impressed and amazed at the job that you've done in getting a partnership together with Warmline and with all your partner agencies, and the targeting to a group of families that seldom get this kind of early intervention. So this is, for me, one of the best examples of partnership and of early focused intervention. We talked about 0 to 5, but 0 is a good starting point, and we haven't done that. We've had this gap that we wait a year or two, and I'm really pleased to hear the next go round, because we identified early on the issue that pediatricians may often say, well, yeah, maybe there's an issue here, let's wait, and I think working with them to understand that, one, we have these services that can do the follow-up and screening to determine whether there are value-added interventions. And I just can't say enough about, I think, with families that are able to have a partner and learn the potential of the human brain to adapt and to recover in unique ways, that this services for, whether it be for autism or other developmental delays, is really essential essential to the outcome of these children and to their families. So to me, this is an amazing effort. I'm looking forward to the future efforts. And I guess my question actually is, of the 42 eligible that receive services, I'm just wondering if we have a sense of how early they started receiving those. I'm not sure if you will be tracking that, but I think it's really important for us to see that, you know, they started getting services at 4 months or at 6 months or 18 months or whatever it might be. So just a thought, any thoughts you have on how soon some of these kids are actually getting the services started?
You know, when we looked at the data during that 18-month pilot, we did break down the age level of children who received our developmental screening services, and it was amazing to see that it was consistently across the board. We were serving about 25% from the infant toddler. I mean, it was very consistent in terms of the age range of children who are being served. Now, we are working with our evaluation department at the Sacramento County Office of Ed, and while I have the data here in terms of how many children were referred and some of the diagnoses, we haven't broken it down by age. So I think that's great. That's excellent feedback, and we'll certainly look at that information. And as we submit our quarterly reports to the Commission, we can certainly include that information. Thank you.
Commissioner Turner-Johnson.
As a former executive director of a Center for Developmental Disability and a 13-year former Head Start director, it is such a joy to see this same kind of meticulous service being applied outside of those paradigms. And I just want to give a shout out to your advocates. At first I was saying that's 500 home visits each for when there were 2 of you. And I think we had 16 advocates at the time I was directing Head Start. And I can tell you that every single step of what you go through, in particular the trust and the ongoing trust issues that families have, not just at the outset when they're learning the legal system and the issue of IEP and IFSP processing, but each year as those dates come up, you will understand, as I do thoroughly, how much it means to have that kind of support. So my hats are off to you. I'm so delighted this can be supported by First Five and also outside boundaries that it had previously been implemented in. So thank you.
Commissioner Cossack.
I wanted to thank the County Office of Education. They've been a great partner with our Head Start program, particularly early Head Start, to really get children diagnosed as quickly as possible, and I look forward to continuing that positive partnership.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, well, thank you to the Commission for prioritizing this area in terms of providing resources to this project. So thank you.
Okay, next item.
Item number 8, Advisory Committee update.
Well, hello and Happy New Year to everybody. New Year, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our report, of course, and something that was very innovative that I want to sort of praise our executive director. We talked a little bit in the beginning during her report about the Board of Supervisors request for the February 7th meeting, a document outlining First Five programs funded by the supervisorial district. We were just very interested to see within districts what is being provided, and especially our Head Start program is throughout the county, so to see what services maybe we're collaborating with in some way. Something I wanted to talk about is with our meetings, you know we meet on a monthly basis. We've done this for decades, or not decades, but we've done this for a long time. Seems like decades anyway. And we've had some problems and some concerns with getting some of our members to sit on some of our committees. We know we have our finance, evaluation, strategic planning, and our new policy, advocacy, and sustainability committee. So going through this, we started discussing it, and the bylaws state that we have to meet on a regular basis. But that also states that could be on a bi-monthly basis, as long as it's a specific or consistent hour, day, place, and time. So what I thought was very innovative is what we've discussed and voted on is we are going to meet bi-monthly for our advisory committee, which would be even months, On the odd months, we are strongly encouraging our members to now sit on committees. So on that odd month, now instead of sitting at our advisory committee, they can now fulfill the evaluation, the financial, and strategic planning. And I thought, again, this is very innovative because there's always a scheduling conflict for us. And unfortunately, as much as we all want to sit, as my executive director sits right there, as much as we want to sit, sometimes scheduling, we just can't do it because that's an extra meeting a month. So I just wanted to give our director kudos for that. And we've got a lot of interest now with our members wanting to sit, as well as myself, for the policy, advocacy, and sustainability. So again, I thought that was very innovative. We did have a presentation and update on Oral Health Public Awareness Project with Julie Byers. And it was on oral health, information and activities, and then we had a discussion, of course, fluoridation always comes up. So we discussed that in great detail, and some of the same questions that were asked here were asked at the advisory as well. Also, with our future agenda items, we also discussed the financial audit, of course, a fiscal cliff. I think we're calling it now the gradual slope, right? No more fiscal cliff, okay. The gradual slope. We discussed that, and this is where I think the the Policy Advocacy and Sustainability Committee is going to really come in, because we need to generate different types of funds, or at least give an awareness to what First 5 does. And I've seen some of the ads that are on, and I went to the 10 o'clock presentation, which was great. We need more of that. So there were some good questions asked there, and hopefully this can be a gradual slope. Last but not least, just some of our future agenda items. We're going to have our dental 5-year update, and what the advisory committee has sort of requested is that our presentations to the committee should reflect the presentations that go before the commission. We are an advisory committee, so we thought we should have these in some way where at least we can see it a little before, and we get a better aspect of what you're actually being presented as well, and we can advise you in any way. So that's it. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Robert?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
Item 9, Financial Planning Committee update.
We met on January 28th and reviewed many of the items that we took action on today. We reviewed the annual audit report, the financial statements to date, and everything seems to be on budget at this point. We also reviewed the beginnings of the 10-year plan and where we may have further discussion, heavy discussion on that. So we would invite any members who would like to visit that committee at any time. You're certainly welcome to attend.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, next item.
Item number 10, Evaluation Committee update.
Thank you. We met on January 25th at our last meeting, and as I had said last time, the Commission staff is working very hard on using the data collection processes that they have in a much more detailed and I think productive way, and so we're very pleased on that. We are tracking some of those issues, and we're getting regular reports on that. We think at the next meeting we will actually have some early data from the new system coming forward. I do want to mention that we're seeing great, so one is the improvement in the use of the Persimmon database, and we're really pleased with that, and I think staff really does deserve good kudos for taking advantage of that tool and improving the quality of the data we're collecting. One of the things we know from a data point of view is if you don't ask about it, you don't get any information. And so I think the staff has been doing some great job of asking some really important questions and improving the quality. The other thing, we've started the next round of data collection. It includes the new adapted family information form that we're collecting on all of the clients who are getting substantial services. And I was shocked to hear that our providers are doing a great job of collecting that so far they've collected 14,000 1,614 of these family information forms, and many of those are the initial state for new clients getting in, and or ones that have been in the system short enough time that this is still the intro. Many of those will be getting a follow-up, so we will continue to have better and better data on looking at outcomes as we go forward. So I'm very pleased to report, and Christina, I also want to say that we do have representation from the advisory committee that we really do value, and so I want to say that. And Christine, if you have anything else to add? Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, next item is the Commission's opportunity to add your comments on any subject you feel you need to speak about. Dr. Kassiri, then Commissioner Wirtz.
Thank you. As you're all aware, at the end of last year, the World Health Organization and CDC declared the end of the Ebola epidemic, and it has kept us busy for quite a while in communicable disease. So we're glad to see the end of it, but unfortunately, beginning of the year, we have a new virus, the Zika virus, which is carried by mosquitoes. And of course, the relevance to this commission here is that it has been linked to congenital abnormalities, especially in some of the countries where they have seen large number of children who have been born with microcephaly, which is small heads. And of course, along with that, there are other developmental abnormalities. We're beginning to get questions from our medical community here, especially for people who are returning from some of the areas like Puerto Rico. And we do have a fact sheet that we can send out, so if anybody is interested in getting that fact sheet, we have it in English and Spanish. We can send it out to you, so please let me know.
Is that something that we could have posted electronically on our website?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll send it to you then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for that reminder. Commissioner Wirtz?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention, we got this report from Black Mothers United evaluation report, and I just wanted to highlight two things if I could. One, in this document, it shows that this program is actually really started up and recruiting moms substantially here, and they're getting outcomes at this point. And I think one of the things that they point to is that they've had 36 births in this 18-month evaluation period here, and at least 32 of those were full term, no problems in the birth, and two of the low birth weight babies were twins and healthy, but a little smaller, partly because they were twins. So I just wanted to highlight that we are getting results now as we speak around this program. Then the second is maybe a request, and I'm not sure when the timing is, so I'm just putting it out there, that I would like to hear from the steering committee of the Reducing African American Disparities at some point to have them come back and talk to us about how that system is moving forward with their efforts.
Good suggestion. Okay. The only thing I think I will mention is it was good to see our folks out at our First Five table with the Smile Keepers van at the annual TET festival in South Sacramento Saturdays ago. So always great to see the First Five Commission's presence at all the various community fairs that many of us attend throughout the year. All right, last item is the public's opportunity to address this commission on any item not on the agenda. See no one approaching the podium. I don't have any speaker slips. There's no further business before this commission. We stand adjourned.